I've been in a coding class and been doing stuff like giving my teacher personal information, showing you how much money you waste at Starbucks, having a survey on your favorite Pokemon starters, and learning how to properly play chess. But now I have the biggest project of my life. I have to make a tower defense game. Ah yes, the tower defense genre. The genre with only one good game, while the rest are just free mobile games trying to steal money from mindless infants. But not only does it have to be just a tower defense game, it has to be a radar tower defense game. What does that mean? Basically, it's a circle, and enemies have to get closer to the center of the circle. So I have to make a tower defense game. One that'll be the best game for my class. One that's fun, that's original, something that will make my classmates jealous. I got nothing. You know what? I'm just gonna play one of my favorite games. Wait a minute. I know what to do! I will make a tower defense roguelike. That idea is so stupid. You really think that I have the skill to combine Plants vs. Zombies with the Binding of Isaac? Do you really think I have the time and energy to actually... You know what? Coding isn't just about making stuff you're told to do. It's about making stuff you want to do. Okay, I will try my best and try to best myself the best I can. It's the start of February and I have until the middle of May to get this done. Just 12 grueling weeks to do this. Now before I actually start, I have a few things to say. First off, this is a Java class, so the code will be fully written in Java. As you know, Java is a language best known for Minecraft. And no, I will not be using any game engines like Unity or Unreal, because that's just too easy. Second, I will be dedicating each week to complete a certain objective. Now before I actually start to write the code, I have to first draft what I want to do. So I said that I will be making a roguelike. And when I said that, I do not mean something like this. Or this. I don't have the skills to make a bullet hell. Now I said this earlier, but one of my all-time favorite games is the Binding of Isaac. And if you have no idea what this game is, you will be the most confused person on the planet. This game was created by dead baby Edmund McMillan, and I'm just gonna let him describe it.
The Binding of Isaac is a game I made in 3 months with Florian Himsel. It was my rebound. I want to make something so old school, so like experimental, very risky, very dark, weird game that is as honest as I can make it to who I am as a person. I'm going to talk about, my personal life. I'm going to talk about religious themes and all this other stuff. And Tommy and I were talking about doing a roguelike game. And I thought, okay, well, it'll be an opportunity to prototype a roguelike. I've never done one before. So I'll prototype something with randomly generated content, and maybe that'll aid in the future of whatever we ended up doing, which was nothing. So I asked Florian, I said, I wanted to do something where I didn't fucking care. It was a Flash game. I was gonna probably put it out for free, maybe get a sponsorship. It was just gonna be so weird and so dark, and the themes were gonna be so awful. I talked about it being my midnight movie. I was like, I know that I know that people like me, which are probably a very small fraction of the population, will really love it. And that's all I really cared about. Development was 3 months of heavy work. I could see the potential right after the first 2 weeks of development. It seemed so strange. It was a riff off of the original Legend of Zelda, so the dungeon structure was very familiar to me. I know that Miyamoto going in wanted to write about his experience as a child and like exploring and turning over rocks and finding whole worlds underneath and stuff like that. And I thought how cool that would be, like, since I'm doing that too, I'll write about my childhood. And it wasn't as fun. And and I had a odd religious upbringing where the Macmillan side of the family were all born again Christians, hardcore. And then my grandma on my mom's side, she was super devout Catholic. So it was very ritualistic and mysterious. It always felt like she was doing magic and lighting candles and all this other stuff. And I wanted to write about how being a creative kid and feeling like such an outcast in my family, mostly due to religion. I remember, constantly being told that, I'm going to go to hell if I do this. I'm evil, I'm bad. What the things that I draw are wicked, that sort of stuff too. So I wanted to write about that. It marries that with ether stuff, where it's like a kid receding into his imagination to be safe, but his imagination's full of these terrible things that are, all mirroring himself, like all bad versions of himself that are trying to harm him, but it eventually becomes strong enough to overcome. But in the end, he's dead.
This game is dark and weird. So here's my original drawing of what I want to do. As you can see, there are 2 circles. The tank is in the center, and the outer circle is where the enemies can be killed. On the outside of the circle is a spawn field where the enemies will spawn. The sidebar is very similar to Isaac's. You have your stats, your health, and the active item on the bottom. Now with all that out of the way, let's start writing the code. First off, I have to name it. How about tank game? Good enough. Now I have to make the window. I mean, it exists, just not really. And it's bigger now. Now let's put a background in. And here's the basic stock photo background. Now I will draw the circles. Now here are the circles and the spawn field. Next I'll add some text. This text right now is extremely depressing. Now it's better. Now I'm going to be doing the sidebar. I decided to do 2 sidebars instead of 1. Then I added more text and the item box. Now with all that basic stuff out of the way, I'm going to do something more advanced. You see, my teacher said that we can just look up images and use them for our project. However, I decided to not steal, but make my own pixel art, which is used in a lot of old games, even recent indie games, or extremely expensive PNGs that people seriously buy. Said someone who has never done any pixel art before. So with Google on my side, I learned how to do the simplest pixel art, starting with this heart. So with the hearts made, I decided to make the borders and the background in pixel art as well. I've also changed the font and added stat icons and a shop. However, there is one last thing I need to make. The tank. Finally, I finished the layout and all the code for the first week. Now on to next week. So, the last time I actually recorded audio was about a month ago. Let's just say this doesn't get easier, it just gets more frustrating. So now, I have to work on the enemies. Like most basic games, the enemies are just going to simply walk right towards the tank. There is no strategy for the enemies, they just walk right into the tank. So the enemies I will make will consist of health, speed, and randomness. So without hesitation, here is the enemy. Well, it's there, although it's not doing much, but right now,
he's just standing there, menacingly!
And now the enemy will not stand still. It just keeps moving wherever it wants, not doing what it needs to do. Now, just after one long week of rewriting code, I finally got the enemies to work correctly. Now, I need to make the enemies move to the center of the tank. And we do that with some complex mathematics.
No! God!
Alright, so I have this simple square and it has to move to the center. So, what kind of math do we need to do? Well, there are 2 points we need to keep track of. The square and the tank. Good news is that the program knows both points. So I need to find the X line and the Y line. Easily you just subtract both values and get the 2 lines. So we got the length of both lines. Now what? Well, you see, if we add one imaginary line, oh look, it's a right triangle. No matter where the square is, it will always create a right triangle. Now, knowing that most children watching this doesn't understand complex math, I'm going to introduce you to 3 buttons that are found on mostly every calculator. And that's, of course, sine, cosine, and tangent. We're going to be using basic trigonometry to move the enemy at a constant speed, no matter where or when it spawns. So let's find the angle theta. If you don't know what that means, then you're going to hate that name in a few years. So we use the arctangent of the y line and the x line to find the angle. Now we need to find the values of dx and dy. These are the amount of distance each enemy will move for each frame. We will now multiply the speed of the enemy, we'll talk about that later, and multiply the sine with the angle theta to get dy, and the cosine with theta to get dx. And that's how much we'll move the enemy each frame. Now because the enemy is constantly moving, the computer will do all the math for every enemy each frame, so that all the enemies will reach the center of the screen no matter where it spawns.
Alright, you ready? Anything?
No, still working.
Alright, start walking.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait. Yeah, that did it.
Yeah, bitch! Magnets! Oh!
So now that the enemy moves correctly, we now need to learn how to defend ourselves. Because this is the tank game, our tank is going to shoot basic bullets, just like real tanks. So how does this work? So the bullet will intersect the enemy, which will do damage, that will hopefully kill the enemy. Basic understanding, right? I will not be going over the math for making the bullet move, since the math is very similar to the enemy moving, just that it's faster and the set point being your cursor. However, I will show off the few bugs that I have encountered doing this. First off, I just want to mention that the tank now rotates with your cursor. and that your cursor is now crosshairs. You may have noticed this already, but I'm still going to point it out. Now for the bugs. First off, the bullet only moves in 8 directions. It can sometimes hit the enemies, but the enemies are smart enough to just attack at different angles, so it's not going to work out. However, that's not the strangest part. If you hold down the mouse and move the cursor, this happens. The good news is, you should be able to hit all the enemies now. The bad news is, what the hell is this control scheme? Not only are the controls extremely weird and not fun to control, but now there are way too many assets loading, which can lag the game. I wasn't even trying, but I somehow made Eye the Occult from Isaac. This isn't working correctly.
3 weeks later.
A bullet is a bullet. Nice. Wait. We're not done just yet. We still have some important requirements for the bullet to make it a bullet. First off, we have to talk about range. In Isaac, range is determined by the bow on the stat bar. Range in Isaac is how far the shot will travel before it hits the ground. In my game, the range of the bullet only makes it to the point where you press the mouse, not the continued slope of the line. The reason for this is for certain other things to work, which you'll see soon, and it was just easier to program. Now I'm going to be talking about these symbols and numbers on the left side of the screen. If you are familiar with Isaac, these are your total stats. These stats will refer to the tank's damage, fire rate, and shot speed respectively. The shot speed is the easiest to explain, since it's the exact value of the speed of the bullet. This value never really changed, but I still kept it in because why not? Next we're going to talk about fire rate. In Isaac, this is referred to as tiers, and is represented by flying arrows. The functionality in Isaac is the same in my game. The value you see is the amount of tiers fired per second. The only difference is that Isaac kinda has a soft cap for the fire rate, while in my game there is no cap. Even if the value was high enough, it might affect the bullets since there is a limit to how many bullets can be on screen. But if this happens, you can just briefly stop shooting to make the bullets move further. Now, time for the most important part of the bullet, the damage. Now, damage is easy to calculate. Every time you hit an enemy, the program will subtract the health with the damage. And if the enemy reaches or passes 0, the enemy dies. Now, you will be able to increase your damage, but that will be talked about in the next part. But I'm going to tell you the formula for calculating damage. So, here's the formula. If you take a close look to this formula, you can see that it's very similar to the damage formula in Isaac. So I mostly copied the formula from Isaac. I did this for a few reasons. One is that the damage formula gets less impactful the more damage you have, making each damage upgrade weaker and weaker, thus will balance the game a lot more. And 2, I just really like this formula and I was kinda lazy with coming up with a different formula. Listen, just do not complain to me about borrowing or simply using someone else's formula. Just because I'm lazy at this one part doesn't mean I'm lazy about writing this program. I mean, have you seen the amount of work I'm doing in this program? Just saving a few hours of my time to just simply take a formula that I thought was well made was what I did. And I will not have some person just randomly start yelling at me for being a lazy ass. Okay, to be fully honest, I don't really know what to call this part. So far in the program, I made the layout, made the enemies work, and the bullets shoot. So basically, I'm done with this game and can finally turn it in since the game is fully functional. Just, what is the day so far? It's the end of March. Wait. There is still a month and a half left of the semester. So I'm looking at my notes right now, and I realize I can make this game better. But what kind of content can I put in this game? The enemy is very basic, so I might upgrade the enemy a bit. The item system in Isaac is one of my favorites, and it's the sole reason I'm putting roguelike elements in this game. And generally, I could clean up the game with some quality of life improvements. I guess I will call part 4 the extra stuff part. I guess. I'm not great with names. So anyway, let's take a look at the enemy again. Okay, so let's dive a bit deeper into the code. One thing I forgot to mention when talking about the enemy is something that I think a lot of people are probably yelling at me right now. What is the health of the enemy? Well, if you look at the code, the starting health for the enemy is 15. Meaning that with the base damage you have, the enemy will take 3 hits to kill. What I realize is that your damage will be increasing. Then, what's the point of having the enemy if you're just gonna kill it in one shot eventually? Since the enemies will come out in waves, I decided on a way to make this more fair. For every 5 waves, all enemy starting health will increase, making the enemies more tankier to your bullets, which will make the game a bit more challenging. But that's not enough. We need some more enemies that are different from the square. Well, you're in luck, because behind here are some new enemies that you will have to defend yourself against. Introducing the new enemies.
That's it? That was just a bunch of
Geometry.
So, here are the 3 new enemies that will be introduced in the game. Let's start off with the triangle. Now, the triangle is very similar to the square, only that it is faster and has less health. Since these guys are fast, they will try to rush you down when there is a big swarm of enemies. You may need to quickly kill these enemies first when you see them spawn, so you won't die. Next, we have the diamond enemy. Now, unlike the triangle, this guy has the most health out of all the enemies. It is also the slowest enemy as well. However, to make this enemy be more dangerous, I decided to make it do 2 hearts of damage instead of just 1. Finally, we have the circle. Now, if you thought the diamond was the scariest enemy we have here, it does not compare to the circle. Basically, the circle is the fastest enemy in the game, being more than 2 times faster than the square enemy. He also has the lowest health out of all the enemies. You can just one-shot him in the early waves. However, when he hits you, instead of doing damage, this guy stuns you for 2.5 seconds. That may not seem like a lot, but compared to the amount of enemies and by how fast these guys are, they can turn your 8 health to 2 health in just seconds. Now, with all the new enemies in, this game just got a whole lot harder. If only there was a way you can make your tank stronger to combat the enemies. Wait, what's this? Now, if you're tired of me talking about Isaac, well, too bad, because I'm going to be talking about it a lot more. Now, what is an item in Isaac? An item is an integral part of gameplay in which collecting an item will increase or change the attributes in Isaac. Most items do different things. Some increase your health, increase damage, increase speed, or can completely change the way you shoot. And the best thing about items is that some items synergize in a fun way. Want to make the laser you're firing home in on enemies? Well, here you go. Want your giant laser to stay out for longer? Well, look what I got for you. Want to be completely powerful to the point of just breaking the game? Of course you do. Now, I'm going to add some items into my game. But how many? Well, how many items are in Isaac? Yeah, no. Listen, I know I have time to work, but not that much time! How about instead of making that many items, I'll just make about 40 items. Hey, the very first version of Isaac only had 100 items, so you can't expect to have over 300 items on your first game. So, how do you get items? Well, every time you kill an enemy, you have a 1 out of 100 chance for the enemy to drop an item. Pretty rare odds, though there is a much more common way to get items, which is just completing a wave. The end of all waves will reward an item, and it can drop any item, unless otherwise specified. Now, let's get into the items. The first 4 items are hammer, wrench, gear, and toolkit. All these items give you a health increase, except toolkit, which gives you 2 hearts instead of 1. Now, health ups are an important part in this game. You need health to survive, and these items will make you survive. You can only have up to 12 hearts, so going over 12 will do nothing. So, there are the first 4 items. We only have 36 more left. Oh boy. Now before I talk about the next items, we need to go back to Isaac and talk about something I forgot to mention. See, in Isaac, there are 2 types of items, active and passive items. Passive items is what you've been seeing. You just pick them up and that's it. There is no need to activate anything. Active items need some way to activate the item in order for the item to do something. You also can only have 1 active item at a time. For example, here's an item called the Necronomicon. You can see the item is on the top left corner, and when I press the spacebar, it activates the item. The item damages all enemies in the room. Now you see that the item can't be activated until it is fully charged by completing rooms. In Isaac, there are many different active items. Some have no charge, while some have 12 room charge. There are also a few items that only activate once and only once. Those types of items are what the active items in my game are like. Once an active item drops, it moves to the item box right here. And when there's an item here, you can press the spacebar and the item does its ability. You can only have 1 active item at a time, so any other active item you see will be removed and replaced with the one you just picked up. Now, these next few items are active items. So first up, we have item number 5, Nuke. The Nuke item is very similar to the Necronomicon that I just finished talking about, in that this item damages all enemies on the field. To be more precise, this does 50 damage to all enemies on the field. Pretty good item early game, but it will get weaker the longer you play. Next up, we have item 6, Flashbang. This item will knock back all enemies on the field and reset their Y value. Any close enemy will have to walk back to you. This item doesn't do any damage, but it could save you if the enemies get too close. Finally, we have item 7, Medkit. This item is similar to the starting health up items, Only this time, you can get the health up anytime you want. You can use it now or use it when you're really low on health. Now, those were the start of the active items. Don't worry, there will be more. But next, we're going to be talking about the stat up items. I know, finally. For item number 8, we have oil. Now, oil is a simple increase in your fire rate. It's not a major increase, but any increase in your stats will help. For item number 9, we have our first damage up called Improved Ammunition, which increases the total damage ups by 1. Again, might not seem like a lot, but any increase in stats are good for you. Now, some items in the game do more than just a small stat increase. Some actually affect the bullets that you're firing, such as item number 10, Sharp Tip, which makes your bullets pierce enemies. For those who don't know what that means, basically, when you shoot your bullet, you may have noticed that when the bullet hits the enemy, the bullet destroys itself. Well, with piercing, the bullet will go right through the enemy, which can allow you to hit enemies that are behind each other. It also slightly increases your damage, making it more useful when you collect more than one. For item number 11, we have Rock, another simple damage up. Now, how does a rock increases your bullet's damage? I don't know, don't ask me. Now, let's take a break on talking about items and talk about a part of the game that was never brought up until now. This place right here called the shop. Now, shops are present in a lot of roguelikes, so I decided to implement a shop in this game. Now, how does the shop work? Well, every time you kill an enemy, you gain a coin. And when you have enough coins, you can buy an item. Now, the shops can sell any item that can be sold in shops. The first shop on the top can only sell health ups, but the other two can sell other items. The shop restocks items after the end of every 5th wave. Now, if you thought that the prices are too high and the coin rate is too slow, well, here we have the next item, Nickel. The Nickel is an item that just gives you 5 coins. Simple. But wait, an item that just gives you 5 coins and that's it? That sounds like a horrible idea. And you'll be right. That's why it's the only item with a unique drop rate. Instead of being a 1% chance to drop from an enemy, the Nickel has a 5% chance to drop from an enemy. It's also one of the few items that can't be sold in shops. So now you should be able to get enough money to buy items quickly. Now back to some actual items, even though Nickel is technically an item. But for the next item, we have another fire rate up with Long Barrel. There are going to be a few items I have very little to say. This is one of them. Item 14, we have Pause, another active item. When activated, this item will freeze all enemies for 3 seconds. Good for protection and for enemy control. Item 15 is Assassin. When activated, this item will kill an enemy on the screen. It will always kill the oldest enemy on the board, not the one closest to your tank. A pretty common misconception, I heard. Item 16 is Mushroom, an item that gives you a damage up, but also gives you a health up. Can you guess what this is a reference to? Isaac, of course. Item 17 is Fire Button. This item kinda has an interesting gimmick. First off, it gives a simple fire rate up. However, this item is a counter to the circle, making you allowed to tap fire, even when stunned. However, I found out that the tap fire is sorta finicky, and that it is just faster to just hold down the button, though it is the only way to shoot while stunned by the circle. Item 18 is Silver Bar. This item gives you 200 coins, and it cannot be sold in the shop. This item is a call out to my teacher who told us that he likes to collect silver as a hobby, so I thought it was a fun idea to make. This next item has some explaining to do. We are not going to look at Isaac. Instead, we're going to look at a game very similar to Isaac. Enter the Gungeon. This game has items very similar to Isaac, and the one item I added is similar to Gungeon Strain. This item decreases the health of all enemies. So this next item I added is called White Flag, which decreases the health of all enemies by 10%. It was a cool item to add, which was a challenge for me to figure out how to make it, and it works quite well. The only thing is that this item only gives the enemies a 10% health decrease, even if you pick up 2 of these. So I also gave it a very small damage up to make up for the item only taking away 10% of enemies' health. For our next items, I decided to implement some risk-reward items. And for item 20, we have Mega Bullets. This item has one of the biggest damage ups in the game. The only downside is that the fire rate is drastically lowered. I've always liked the concept of risk-reward elements in video games, so I tried my hardest to think of a few. We are halfway done with the items now. Some of these next items I will just have a few words to say since there is not much to talk about. Anyways, item number 21 is Tiny Bullets, which is the exact opposite of Mega Bullets. It has one of the highest fire rate ups in the game, but it reduces your damage a bit. Next, we have an item that affects the shop. And I don't mean by just giving you money. I mean it actually changes the shop. And it's an active item too. Item 22 is Sale. An active item that restocks the shop. That's great and all, but it does something better. The new shop prices are reduced by half. It's great for using up all your leftover money. But remember, the shops restocks every 5th wave. Even if you use this on wave 5, it will still restock the shop when you end the wave, and you will lose the discount. So use this when you can. For item number 23, we have Shield. This item is a bit interesting when you collect it. You see that one of your hearts turns blue. Whenever you take lethal damage, this will prevent that damage and leave you with 1 heart. It's sorta like an extra life for your tank. This next item has a lot of information. When developing the bullets, I noticed that when you shoot the bullets don't disappear when they land. They just sit there and act like a mine. So I decided to implement this into an item. For item number 24, we have bullet mines. When shot, the bullet will sit there and damages any enemy that walks into it. The only bad thing I have with this item is that it will remove the piercing ability that came with Sharp Point. The reason I did this is because the item would be too powerful by constantly doing damage to the enemy without destroying the bullet. So I had to get rid of the synergy. Item 25 is Die, the complete RNG item in the game. When rolled, it will do one of 7 things. Give you 2 hearts, give you a big damage up, give you a big fire rate up, gives you 20 coins, reduce fire rate, reduce health, which will not kill, and reduce coins. The biggest risk reward item in the game, and one of my favorite items. Item 26, Nail. It's just a damage up. Next, item 27, Leftovers. This item is a health up, but it also provides you with more health. When grabbed, the item will give you an extra heart every 5th wave. Similar to the game I'm referencing here. Item 28, Target. It's just a fire rate up. Next, item 29 is another active item, Star. If you can guess, this item grants you invincibility for a few seconds. This prevents damage and stunning from all enemies. We are at the home stretch now, only 10 more items left. At item number 30, we have Sword. It's a damage up, but it does something other than a damage up. When an enemy does damage, you still get the benefits of when you killed it, such as the coin and the item chance. Item 31, Laser. This item gives you a fun laser to aim at the enemies, also a fire rate up. The laser is just cosmetic and does nothing, though it might help you aim better. Item 32, Candle, a classic item from Zelda. This item gives both a damage and a fire rate up. Item 33, Radar. Originally, this was just going to be a damage up. However, I decided to make this item do something else. This item tells you how many enemies are left. It still gives you a damage up. Item 34, Golden Bullets. This damage up is unique. Instead of being a set damage up, this item increases damage based on the amount of money you're holding right now. It is an immediate damage increase instead of being a passive damage increase like money equals power in Isaac. Item 35, Rusted Parts. Another risk reward item. This item increases damage by a lot, but this item will decrease your health by 1. This item cannot kill you, so if you have 1 HP, it's just a damage up. Item 36, Emergency Only. This item is like Nuke, but instead of doing damage to all enemies, this item just kills all enemies. The catch is that this item takes away 2 hearts, and it can kill you. Just so you know, this item is not a reference to something, it's just a last ditch item I came up with. Item 37, Box of Ammo. It's just a simple fire rate up again. Can't you tell I'm getting tired of this? We are at the last 3 items, and for number 38, Moral Support. The penultimate item is Present, the last active item in the game, and it's also the only item that can only be obtained in the store. This item can create any item in the game, so buy it and hope you get lucky. And that's all the items. But wait, didn't you say there were 40 items in the game? There are. But you only covered 39. Yeah, So, what's the point in playing if I just tell you what the last item is? Why don't you play the game and figure out what the last item is? I will give you a hint. It is also the rarest item in the game, so look out for it. And to think, we're still not done with part 4. QOL, otherwise known as quality of life. Quality of life means adding small improvements that will make the game more welcoming to new players. This means creating very simple ideas for any player to get less frustrating. Some ideas may even seem obvious, such as a start menu. You never want the game to just start outright just after you open the game. You want the player to be able to start it on their own terms. Also, if you moved your cursor on the start button, it turns blue. This is a simple feature that tells the player that they're on the button and that all they need to do is just click to start. Also, we have a controls button that simply just tells you how to play. On the other side, we have the game over screen. This screen has the same start button, and clicking it will reset all your stats and items and start you back at wave 1. The second simple thing I added is a thing I'm curious most of my classmates didn't even think of, and that's to include a pause feature. Now, pausing is a good thing to do. You don't just want to play the whole game in one sitting. What if you need to go to the bathroom, or eat lunch, or go to your angry mother who tells you to pause the game? Well, now you can, and it's just as simple as pressing the P key, or escape. The pause feature will stop all enemies from moving, and any enemies from spawning. And just so you're aware, when you pause, you cannot shoot, cannot pick up any items, or activate your active items. And another thing, don't think you're too smart for pausing to buffer out your stun timer, because that will not work. Last thing I wanted to talk about was a thing I added after I completed the game. When this game was finished, after completing a wave, the game immediately went on to the next wave, not even giving you time to pick up or buy an item. So, at the end of every wave, I add in a 5-second break timer to get you prepared for your next wave. This addition makes it so much safer to grab and buy items. And after all of that, part 4 is finally over. Jeez, this part took almost 30 minutes. Get it? There's no background music. It's funny, right? So, there are 2 more weeks left in this project, but it feels like I'm missing something. This just feels quite empty. It feels like we need something that makes it more interesting. Like, the game is too quiet. Now, look, everything I talked about is something that I learned in my Java class, except for playing sounds. Luckily, my teacher told me that sounds aren't hard to implement, so let's do that. First off, I'm going to add some background music. Now, for anyone who spends a few minutes on the internet, You should know how frustrating the music copyright system is, especially on YouTube. Anyways, since I don't have the budget to afford buying some tracks, I'm going to be doing something else. Now, one thing I don't want to do is to use other video game music, like what you've been hearing in the background of this video. And I want to put music that people have not heard before. I'm not putting in Kevin McLeod's music in, although that would be interesting. Well, like one of my high school teachers once said, if you don't know what to do, Google it. I now introduce you to the savior of this part, freesound.org, a website hosting thousands of users that uploads free sound effects for people to sign up and use them in their projects. And also to give credit to these artists, because if you don't give credit, you're just an asshole. Anyways, this website is a savior when it comes to finding some quick sound that will fit perfectly into your game. For example, if you want to make a simple 8-bit platformer game and you just want to find a simple jump sound, well, just search 8-bit jump and you'll find many different sound effects. Then all you have to do is choose the best sound effect that works for you. Again, make sure you give credit to these people. And if I recall, music is a type of sound. So yes, this website has music too. But it's not the typical music I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is music that is not distracting to the player and loops into each other perfectly. Well, most of these creators on this website created loop tracks. These tracks are meant to loop into each other and itself to make it seem like the song is a lot longer than it actually is. I've been talking about music a lot, but why should I include music in this game? First off, let me show you the gameplay so far. See, the gameplay is very boring. You may play it for about a minute and already get bored of it. There's no immersion, no mood, no attention grabber. It's the same reason why there's background music in this video. So, let me play the same clip and add the music I'm using for this game. See, much better. Now I went back to the website to find some good tracks to use in the game. And I found a lot of good tracks from a bunch of different people. But one artist stood out in particular. Not only that, but this person is pretty unknown. And that person is BloodPixelHero. Most sounds this person has is background music. And I think a lot of the music fits perfectly in the game. So I chose a lot of tracks from this guy and I think they fit pretty well into the game. 22 to be specific. I'm not going to play the full music of all these tracks because that's almost 50 minutes of music and this video is already too long. But I will play a few seconds of each track. But if you want to listen to all the tracks entirely, I will leave a link in the description to a video that has all of the tracks in the game. Again, thank you BloodPixelHero for the tracks. If you want to make an archaic style game and want some music, I recommend his music. So, the music is now done, but I want more immersion. So let's add some sound effects. Sound effects are important because it helps the player feel more aware. It feels like you're actually doing something. Just imagine you play an FPS and you shoot your gun and there's no sound. It just feels like something's wrong. Well, adding sound effects helps the player know what to do. There is a list of sound effects I want to add. Shooting, enemy kill sound, hurt sound, item pickup sound, active items, and other things, if I think about. So I found some sounds for all of these actions, and I'll show them each. Don't worry, I will give credit to all the makers at the end of this compilation. So, the shooting sound sounds like this. Now this sound will loop endlessly when you're holding down the button, and letting go will stop the sound. The only problem is that this sound doesn't follow your fire rate, especially if you have a lower fire rate. Now, these next sounds are very similar that I actually have to tell you what they are, or you thought they will be the same sound, but these sounds are completely different. So we have the sound when you kill the enemy, and the sound when you get hit by the enemy. I'll play it again. Kill, hit. Kill, hit. You see why I told you they were similar, but yet they're a bit different? Then we have the item pickup sound. All the items have the same pickup sound, except for nickel. It's a fun idea to make the item that appears the most to have a different sound, and this sound makes sense to the item. Now we have a few items that make sound. So basically, almost all the active items make a sound, and most of them are original. So let's go over most of the active items and see what the sound is. First off, we have the nuke. Let's test it. Nah, I'm just joking. It's not that insane. In fact, it's a lot tamer. It's just a simple 8-bit explosion. Now, here's the flashbang sound. This sound is unique in that it is the only sound that I edited down from its original audio. We're gonna jump to the assassin sound. Yep, it's just a full-on shotgun. Now, the sale sound is a register sound effect. This is the same sound for buying an item. It is a nice sound to indicate that you just purchased an item from the shop. However, there are 3 sounds that I added that you might find sound very similar to something. Yep, all these 3 sounds came from Isaac. Listen, I said that I wasn't going to take video game music, but sound effects are fair game. I also just had 1 week left, so go easy on me. Anyway, the item pickup sound plays when you grab an item besides nickel. The thumbs up sound plays for the rest of the active items, and the thumbs down sound plays specifically for the die item when you got a negative effect, or when you don't have an item and you press the spacebar. Anyway, like I said at the beginning, I will now give credit to all the people I used their sounds in. Thanks to Little Robot Sound Factory for the shooting sound. This guy has over 1,000 sounds on his profile, and I just used one. Sadly, he does not use or will be coming back to the website. But anyways, thanks, Morton. Cool name, by the way. Thanks to Projects UO12 for the coin and explosion sound. Thanks to Microvase for the shotgun sound, and you're welcome. I hope I pronounced your username right. Thanks to Kid Park for the cash register sound effect. Thanks to the Dweeb Man for the kill sound. Great name. Thanks to Professor Mudkip for the hit sound. glad we share our favorite Pokemon. Thanks to Richwise for the firework sound. This is an actual firework, by the way. And again, a very big thanks to BloodPixelHero for all the background music. I'll be putting his page in the description of the video so other people can check out your tracks. And finally, thank you to Sticky Egg McMuffin for allowing me to use your few sound effects from Isaac that I didn't ask for. Just to be clear, Edmund is very kind to a lot of early game designers, so I'm pretty sure he's fine with me doing this, especially since this game is free. So, thanks Edmund. I will not give context for this photo. We are finally at the last part! All that needs to be done is to wrap it all up in a file that should be able to be opened by anyone. Now, every time I need to run the program, I just simply press the run button on my IDE, which most people won't know how to do. I'm also not sending you my code because people will definitely steal it. So what I am going to do is make an executable file, where all you have to do is just click on it to run the program. Now you may expect the file to be a .exe file, like almost all programming languages. However, Java doesn't make .exe files. Instead, they make a jar file. Now the only difference between an exe and a jar file is that you need a Java JDK to be able to run it. Even if you make it an exe file, which is possible, you still need a Java JDK. Now, how does one make a jar file? Well, you just need to go to your command line and type this. I will describe what all this means in the simplest of terms. First off, the CVFM. Now each one of these letters correspond to an action the compiler will do. Now the C is the most important letter because if you don't have it, the compiler doesn't know what to do. Basically, the C stands for create, meaning we want to create a new jar file. V is the most useless one on here because all it does is tell you what's being added to the jar file. It is nice to see if all your files actually output to the file, so it's always recommended to keep it in, but if you don't want it, you don't need it. Next up is F. This one's important because it means you want the program to use these certain files. Now the M is the hardest to explain, so I'll try and sum it up the best way I can. Basically, all Java programs must have a main method. So imagine a racetrack where your computer is the runner. You have all your class files, which can be the obstacles or checkpoints, which are scattered all over the race. The main method is the starting line, which is where the program will start to run. And in that race, the computer then reaches the obstacles and performs the task of those obstacles. Now when the computer reaches the end of the race, the program finishes and it becomes a successful program. Now if you don't have the main method, the computer won't know where to start. And since we have multiple class files, the computer won't know which one to start at, which will fail and the program won't run. Now the M stands for Custom Manifest File, which is a file that basically says, yo, computer, the start line is right here, dumbass. So the computer will now know where to start the race and will start running. That's the best way I can describe it. Now with everything set up, I need to test a few questions. Will the program run? Will it run outside the file? And will it run on a different computer? If all these three are yes, then the program is ready to be released. Alright, here we have our first test. Let's try it again. Shit.
1 hour later.
Okay, attempt number 2. Nice, nice. Everything is working. Okay, now we take it out of the file. Shit.
2 hours later.
Okay, attempt 3. I had to rewrite a few more things for the code to work. Test 1. Nice. Test 2. We're getting somewhere. Okay. Final test. Let's hope this works. So I just finished a 3-month-long project for school and can finally release it. However, the thing that got me the most stressed was making this video. I just want to finish this video with some of my own thoughts. This is the only part where I don't have any script to read off of. All I just have is some notes that I just want to talk about. But that's it. The first thing I really want to talk about, which I kind of find funny, is that at the beginning of this video, I said that I couldn't recreate Plants vs. Zombies and the Binding of Isaac. And then 2 days later, someone did that. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that game came before I even recorded that line, which was really funny to me. But I don't know if anyone else kind of finds that funny, though I bet some people in the comments will probably talk about that. But anyways, there's a few thoughts I want to talk about. First off, in this semester when I was actually writing this program, which I think a lot of people forgot, like this was a school project, not just a game I just made. But during the semester I had 2 classes, which was the Java class and a math class, which I had no problem with. Basically, you might have thought, like, basically, was this whole project just the only thing you did in Java? Which, no, it absolutely was not. And we did have some more projects, but I just did not even care about them. Sorry for the light, it's just too bright, but this was the only project I really focused on. The other projects we had was learning how to do math and sorting, and then some other things we just thought of, like I think we did one with trying to solve a maze, which wasn't really that fun to do. Then we had another one where we had to, like, assign numbers to something. I don't know, it was weird. And honestly, I just only majorly focused on this. And it's finally over. Which, like, I finished most of it, like, before this video was even done. Like, I think the part I was still in the makings of was in part 2 when I was making the enemies. Like, that was the only part I actually was still working on it. But everything else was just after I completed it. All the recording, all the item showcase, everything. Like, even the music was playing in the background during the item showcase, but I didn't play any of it. A lot of people, I think, may be asking, like, hey, this was a project you were supposed to work on for school, so what grades did you get? Well, I can tell you right now, I did get 100 on that. So, thank you, teacher. I put, like, too much work into that project. And thankfully, I was rewarded for that. And for anyone who, like, want to know, like, this was the first thing I really did, like, everything on. Like, it was the first time this was the first time I actually, like, sat down for hours just to, like, actually type something I want to do. And I could have made this a lot simpler. Like, I could have finished this, like, in March, and just be done with it. But no, I still like continued with it. I can think of another one of my classmates finished this in March and just stopped working on it, which is something I didn't want to do because I was having a lot of fun like trying to make things. And let me tell you, like the month I was like working on the items was just the most fun part in this project. Like brainstorming tons of ideas what I wanted to do. And now the game is done. I'm probably not going to work on it anymore. And if you want to download it, there's a download link in the description. Like I said before, you need a Java JDK to run it. That's not my fault, that's Java's fault. So don't blame me. It's really easy to do. Just Google Java JDK download and you'll just go take into their website and you just download and install it. It's really easy. And this is only a PC or laptop thing, so don't it won't work if you download it on your iPhone or iPad or anything else. But lastly, I just want to thank a few people. First off, my teacher, who without him I probably wouldn't even finish this project. Not because it was stress to actually complete the project, but because there is so many stuff that I had to do that I couldn't just figure out. And I was stuck on a few parts for weeks. And for those few parts, I basically just wanted to stop. Just stop the game and just leave it there and not even touch it for 2 days. Because I was just so angry at it. But luckily, everything worked out. Everything works. Probably the one thing I don't think is the best is the audio. Which is honestly probably the thing I'm least worried about. Because I'm not great with audio at all. But I just hope people will understand that this is my first attempt at making any sort of game. And I hope you have fun with it. Another person I want to thank is my friend Ryan, who was in the same class as me. And we're working on the same project. And I was just so much more involved with the class than him. That I was so far ahead in every project. And he just basically wanted a copy off me. But since I was going all off on this project, he basically helped me with a lot of other things. So thank you, Ryan. And finally, I want to thank my family who saw me play the game and what I actually produced. And they're like, wow, this is really good. You should actually start to sell this. Which I don't want to. Because this is not a game I want really to be sold. I just want people to download it for free. Even though I spent God, this video took 6 months to edit. But anyways, like I said, this was a first thing for everything. First time I used Java. First time I used Photoshop. First time I used Premiere. And I gotta say, I have a better appreciation for editors. So anyway, I'm just gonna end this video. You may have seen when you hover over it that the video still has 5 minutes left. But all I wanted to do for the last 5 minutes is just play the game, no commentary, just show what the game is. Not have my voice talking in the background about, just show the gameplay with no other things. Just to show you what the game is like. So it'll be no commentary, no voice background, no me talking in front of the game. It's just gameplay with the background music and sounds in there. So you can watch the full game in its entirety. This was the first time I actually showed my face and used my voice. Yes, I know I mumble a lot. And sorry, I'm not that great of a talker. Which I hope people can forgive me about.